I've had enough coffee chats and comment threads to see the pattern. Emotional reactionism is poisoning our political discourse. It's not just coming from one side. It's coming from both extremes. Whether it's the far left clinging to democracy, like a moral badge, or the far right weaponizing patriotism without constitutional clarity, the result is the same: noise over substance. Recently, I engaged with two people, one a Democrat, the other a Republican. You'd think they'd be ideological opposites, but both responded with the same emotional volatility, the same lack of reasoned dialogue, and the same disregard for constitutional principles. That's when it hit me. This isn't about party. It's about understanding the foundation we're standing on.
America is not a democracy.
Let me say this again, because it keeps getting brushed aside. The United States is not a democracy. It was never intended to be. The founders deliberately avoided that label. They understood that pure democracy, governance by majority emotion, leads to instability, tyranny, and the erosion of individual rights. Instead, they built a constitutional republic. A system grounded in law, not popularity. A structure designed to protect minority viewpoints from majority impulse. A framework where reason, debate, and checks and balances reign over emotionalism. Benjamin Franklin warned us. When the people find that they can vote themselves money, that will herald the end of the republic. That's not just a clever quote. It's a prophecy, and we're watching it unfold. Here's why calling our system a representative democracy isn't enough.
Representative democracy.
Some people lean on the phrase representative democracy like it's a cure-all. Repeat the words often enough and somehow the system stays perfect. Sure, we elect legislators, judges, and executives. But if slapping that label on our government solved everything, we wouldn't need a written constitution to curb those very representatives. A Bill of Rights to protect us from fleeting popular whims. An independent judiciary to enforce the rule of law. The framers never once called it representative democracy in the Constitution or during the ratification debates. They understood that elections alone aren't enough to safeguard liberty. After all, any regime that holds votes could wear that label. Even those that funnel power into a single party or dictator. So, before we lean on the slogan, let's ask, does our structure actually enforce limits, protect minorities, and check majority urges? If not, it's just lip service. And in a constitutional republic, lip service doesn't win arguments. Reason does.
Beware of false republics. Beware of false republics.
Now, here's where the confusion gets dangerous. Some will point to regimes like the former Soviet Union or modern-day authoritarian states and say they called themselves constitutional republics too. And they'd be right, on paper. But a label doesn't make it real. The Soviet Union had a constitution. So does China. So did Saddam Hussein's Iraq. But those documents were tools of control, not liberty. Their republics were built on centralized power, suppression of dissent, and the illusion of representation. What makes the American constitutional republic unique isn't the name, it's the structure. Separation of powers, independent judiciary, free press, protected speech, regular elections with peaceful transitions, a constitution that limits government, not people. So, when someone tries to equate America's system with a regime that merely borrowed the term, they're either misinformed or deliberately misleading, and we must be prepared to call that out.
Why it matters globally.
America's the only nation in the world founded explicitly as a constitutional republic. Other countries may call themselves democracies, Canada, much of Europe. But even they've drifted from the classical democratic model. The US stands alone in its design, and that design is under attack. When emotional governance takes over, we don't just lose clarity, we lose credibility. We become weak, and weakness invites danger. Extremist ideologies like radical Islamism and communism operate on long-term strategies. They exploit emotional division, erode national identity, and wait for the moment when the republic falters. If America falls into the trap of emotional populism, whether from the left or the right, we don't just lose our freedom, we lose our ability to lead, to protect, and to inspire.
The MAGA movement.
Not just Republicans. Let's be clear. MAGA isn't a Republican movement. Many of its strongest voices come from old-school Democrats who believe in rebuilding America's strength, not just economically or socially, but geopolitically. They understand that greatness isn't about dominance, it's about stability, leadership, and protection. We need a strong America, not to conquer the world, but to anchor it, to stand firm against ideological extremism, to remind every nation that greatness is possible, but only when built on law, not emotion. The third world trap. How overregulation and taxation are destroying our cities. Let's talk about what's happening in our own backyard. Many American cities, once symbols of prosperity and innovation, now resemble third world countries. Why? Because of overregulation, excessive taxation, and government overreach. The founders fought for freedom, including economic freedom. They understood that oppressive taxation was a form of tyranny, yet today we see
Skyrocketing taxes that punish hard work.
regulations that drive businesses overseas, streets filled with poverty, crime, and decay, local governments more focused on control than solutions. This isn't just bad policy, it's betrayal. We were warned about this, and now we're living. People say bringing back manufacturing will cost too much. No, it will balance itself, maybe not overnight, but long term it will restore dignity, jobs, and pride. America should never look like a third world country, and yet, in many places, it does. That's why we need to make America great again. Not just in slogans, but in action. Not just in wealth, but in strength, clarity, and purpose.
Emotions doesn't win, the argument reason does.
Every time I post about these principles, I get emotional backlash. People throw insults, vague accusations, and party-line slogans, but they rarely bring facts, they rarely engage in real debate, and that's the problem. We've confused passion with principle. We've replaced dialogue with deflection. We've allowed emotion to override the Constitution. So here's my challenge. If you want to be part of the conversation, bring clarity, bring history, bring law, because in a constitutional republic, emotion